Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to week 16 of the NFL season. Interesting week this week, and a lot of games are happening that will have a major impact on draft standing and playoff implications as well. We'll talk about the Tankathon 2025 season. We go through the Jets rooting guide here in week 16 and the path to number one, not a rooting guide for just the Giants or the Titans to get number one. I'll give my predictions on the NFL games and then give you my Fiore 4 at the end, which last week, if you took my 4 best bets, you would have won all 4 of those games. Now, let's start with Jets versus Saints. The New York Jets, historically speaking, are a franchise that loses a lot of football games. However, they never really tank properly because they win meaningless football games at the end of the season. I mean, you don't have to go very far back in history to look. The Jets constantly find ways to win games that we don't think they would win and should win because, I've been saying this for a couple of weeks now, but we're in a place. I hate to break it to all the fans that are anti-tankers, but we're in a place now with 3 games left in the season that to win the battle, you need to lose the war. And losing the war means you can't win these next 3 games. Right now, you're currently picking 5th. Any win in the next 3 games could potentially move that all the way back to 9. There's so many bad teams in football. And so right now, we really need to embrace the tank. Whether you're for a quarterback or not doesn't matter. Really, you want a better draft pick. And you want, just like you want Indy to lose games consistently. And the good news, I think, right now is if we're just being honest with ourselves, this regime is not really doing much to try to win football games today. I'm not saying that they're intentionally tanking, but when you're starting Brady Cook with either Tyrod or Fields backing him up, and listen, I like Brady Cook. He's an awesome story, good kid, rooting hard for him, but he's an undrafted free agent. And if you think that he's better than, well, he might be better than Fields right now. Fields has been terrible, but he's not better than Tyrod if Tyrod's healthy. He doesn't give you a better chance to win. I mean, that's just the reality of it. But they should play him. I want them to play him. We're also in a time right now where I don't think we're going to see Garrett Wilson the rest of the season, and I think that's a good thing. And Mason Taylor's hurt, so you go down the list. The Jets are playing a fringe NFL full roster at this point, and they're going into New Orleans, coming off of back-to-back blowout losses. This is back-to-back road games now to play a team that, although the Saints are 4-10 versus our 3-11, so that feels like a pretty even matchup. They couldn't be further from each other when it comes to, I think, effort, execution, and overall play right now. The Saints have won 2 straight games. They've looked quite good doing that, beating 2 playoff contenders. And their rookie quarterback, Tyler Shuck, who was a second-round draft pick, looks like someone who you might feel comfortable going into next season as the starting quarterback. Now, I say that because if you're just being honest in your assessment about him, he's looked quite good. I mean, he's had multiple games where he's thrown for over 200 yards. He can move a bit. He seems pretty accurate. He likes to push the ball downfield. He's not a kid, right? He's an older rookie. And you don't draft someone the second round if you don't want to give them an opportunity. And the Saints aren't going to be a contender next year. So what's the harm in giving him the job next year? And then maybe if he's not good enough, you draft someone in 27. At least they have a potential solution on the roster, unlike the Jets, despite the Brady Cook fans who believe he could be the answer. Or now I'm sure we'll hear about the Hendon Hooker fans who believe he could be the answer. But the reality of it is Tyler Shuck, if you're being real about the rookie quarterbacks this year, I don't see where he's been Look, I think you could say Jackson Dart, who I love, and I wanted the Jets to draft. He's had an up and down rookie season with injuries. He's, on the team and himself. He's shown flashes of someone who's got the grit and the physical ability to be very, very strong. But they're a 2-win football team, and he's made mistakes and he's put himself in harm's way. And then you've got Cam Ward, also a 2-win quarterback who has had a terrible season. So if I'm just grading on an honest assessment, not just what their ceilings might be, in year one of their rookie seasons, Tyler Shuck is right there. In fact, he might be the best one of the three. So, New Orleans at home, they're playing with some juice. They're a bit plucky right now. They are 6.5-point favorites in this game. The line opened at 4.5, and it's moved 2 since then. I think that's just the reality of the Jets getting completely demolished the last 2 weeks and their defense looking disinterested, and the Saints looking like, they're going down the stretch trying to win games and playing for something. All that said, I'm still scared stiff because this is the game historically the Jets would find a way to win. Will that happen? I mean, I may come back here on Sunday night and regret this, but I don't think so. This feels like a game where the Jets defense, now that they got rid of Wilkes, they may come out early on with a little bit of energy and fire. But I don't see a world where the Jets secondary is going to handle Olave. I think Shuck moves a bit, in the pocket, which gives them trouble. I think they're going to be biting on play action like they always do. The Saints don't have a great running game, but Shuck is mobile. Saints have a couple of really good wide receivers. And their defense is playing well. I see this being like a 23-14 Saints victory. And the tank will remain on, and our hope for the number one pick, no matter what happens, by the way, this week, as long as the Jets lose, they're still alive for the number one pick. And I think that's something that we should all be very aware of. This thing is really bunched up. I know the Jets right now currently sit 5th in the draft order, but when you look at it, it's really, it's a 1-game difference between where the Jets sit and, where the Giants, the Raiders, and Tennessee sit. And any one little thing that could happen could move that needle one way or the other. And so when I do the Jets rooting guide, and I alluded to this in the beginning of of this chat today, you have to, I think, look at it through a lens of, until they can't get the number one pick, we should be rooting for the number one pick. And you're going to hear analysts and other people who do pods talk about wanting the Giants to lose out, wanting Tennessee to lose out. No matter what, just don't have Las Vegas finish with number one, and don't have Cleveland finish number one. Look, two things can be true. You don't want Cleveland or the Raiders to finish with the number one pick. If you have hopes of moving up to number one, that will just basically be the end of that. But if the Giants or the Titans, who we presume both teams have a quarterback, end up number one, then we're going to hear everybody on X who doesn't want to trade any draft capital freak out if the Jets try to move up. So let's make everyone happy and say, hey, how can we get the number one pick? I mean, is there a path? And yes, there's a path I'm going to go through with you guys right now. Now, this week, so here's the current order, right? You've got the Giants sitting at 1, the Raiders at 2, Tennessee, Cleveland, and then the Jets. So the Jets are sitting right now at 5. But, if we just go through the schedule this week, and by the way, how great was that game last night? I had the Rams. I put a tweet on X that was like, hey, I don't see a world where the Rams don't win this game because of the quarterback advantage. They were up 2 scores with 9 minutes left, and then the world turned on that return. And then Sam got clutch, and he had some great moments. I'm happy for Sam, but I would have won this game because it was Rams were -1.5, plus 1.5. So I would have won that game. But anyway, if we just go through it, I'm just going to put these in quick. The games that don't really matter. First game that matters. Buffalo is at Cleveland. Now, obviously, this would be a massive upset, but let's just put it in for the sake of the argument. Our rooting guide has we want Cleveland to win that game. This doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. We need the Jets to lose. Here's another game. Now, most people will tell you we want the Giants to lose this game. If the Giants win this game, it's not the end of the world because they still have 2 games left in the season. And ultimately, if you're rooting for the number 1 pick, the Jets would have to leapfrog the Giants. But for the sake of Week 16, I'm going to say the Giants find a way to win a game at home against Minnesota. Tennessee at home against Kansas City, and they don't have Mahomes. They're out of the playoffs. I mean, Tennessee's been plucky. Give them a win. This game really doesn't matter either. Let's just, again, it doesn't matter. I'll make my picks in a bit. These aren't reflective of picks at this point. This is a game that's impossible to say is going to happen. I'd be lying. This is just my fandom as a Jet fan. But let's just say the Raiders found a way to win. And then at the end of it all, if this all happens this week, the Jets would have the number 1 pick. Giants would be number 2. Now, what do I think is going to happen? So your rooting guide, let's just go back. Your rooting guide this week, Raiders to win, Giants to win, Tennessee to win, Cleveland to win, and our Jets to lose. That's the direct path to the number 1 pick for Week 16. The other 2 games that actually matter a lot, if we're thinking about Weeks 17 and 18, are 2 games that, as Jet fans, you might cringe at this, but Baltimore and New England. Baltimore is currently a game behind the Steelers with 3 games left. You want New England to win this game. You have to root for the Patriots. Why? Because we want to get to a point in the season where Baltimore is eliminated, and we could get there by the Pittsburgh Cleveland game in Week 17. In this scenario, if New England beats Baltimore and Pittsburgh upsets Detroit, they will then have a 2-game lead going into Week 17. Week 17. Cleveland and the Browns play, fine. But you have, where is it? Here. Baltimore is at Green Bay. At Green Bay, in any world, you expect Green Bay to win that game. And that's on a Saturday. So there's a scenario where if Baltimore loses this week and Pittsburgh wins this week, and then Baltimore loses on Saturday next week, the Pittsburgh-Cleveland game in Cleveland will mean absolutely nothing for Pittsburgh's playoff hopes. They would have clinched the division at that point, right? So you want that to happen. Not that they're going to rest anybody, because I don't think they're going to rest anyone, but there's a different mindset when you go into a game needing the game and, fighting for your playoff life versus everything's clinched and now we don't want to get hurt. We want to be healthy for the playoffs. We don't have anything to lose, so just whatever. That's massive. Just like it's massive that Mahomes is hurt and, 2 of the games they have left are against teams that have playoff implications with the Jets, right? They play Tennessee this week. They play the Raiders at the end of the season. So nothing is set in stone. And I don't know why we're sitting here just rooting for the Giants to get the number 1 pick. Like, then we want to go give them draft capital. Like, if that has to happen, fine. But I'm not in that mindset right now until I have to be. So there's your rooting guide for this week. As improbable and unlikely as it sounds, you want to see the teams in front of you lose. And then you have to root for the Patriots. And I know that sounds crazy. And you have to root for Aaron Rodgers. And I know he's another one of those people that 50% of this fan base hates. The other 50% of this fan base understands that the reality of what happened when he was here. And so that's the rooting guide. Now, let's get into the games this week. Some good games on the schedule, and we have a Saturday games this week. This is when the Saturday slate starts, which is great and fun because I love football. So anytime I can get games on a Saturday, let's do it. Game number 1 is Eagles. They're 7-point favorites at Washington. Now, obviously, on paper, Eagles are a significantly better football team. Washington's playing Mariota. They're playing out the string. They are coming off of a nice win last week. The Eagles had a get right game last week as well. So, Eagles look healthy and better after last week. But, it's a division rival game. And the Commanders, I don't think Mariota's terrible, honestly. I think he's decent enough. I think the Eagles are going to win the game, but 7 points is a lot. So for me, I'm going to take the Commanders getting 7. Now, last week I was 11-4 against the spread. I expect to not have anywhere near as good a week because there's a lot of games that are very challenging to pick, but it's all in good fun. So Commanders +7. Packers at Bears. Bears a 1.5 favorite. A very evenly matched game between two really good football teams who have flaws, but they're good and they will be a tough out in the playoffs. It's nice to see this rivalry have two teams that are actually playing well. You know, the Bears on defense, they turn the ball over. Jordan Love, who's I like, has not yet lived up to the potential of his contract, but is a very good quarterback. Does have a tendency sometimes to get a little turnover happy. So because it's in Chicago, could it be Indiana, by the way, in the future? That'd be weird. Um, but because it's at the Bears, I'm going to take the Bears -1.5. And, Ben Johnson's done a great job with that team. So Bears at home -1.5. Bills and Browns. So, um, obviously my heart wants the Browns to win and take 10.5 points. It's 2 scores. But the reality of this game is, the Bills are just so significantly and superiorly talented over the Browns. I was hoping Shador would look good down the stretch here and give the Browns something to think about when it came to draft season. He was terrible last week. He threw 3 picks. They looked lifeless. I think Stefanski can likely get fired. In fact, I think that's the rumor now is that they're going to blow it all up. Um, I think the Bills go into the Browns and probably demolish them. So my heart says Browns. My head and the intelligence of understanding football would say the Bills will cover that spread. But we'll see. Here's an interesting game: Chargers at Cowboys. Now, Cowboys are a 1.5 favorite, which is interesting because the Chargers are a good football team. They're having a very good season. They come into this game in a playoff spot, whereas the Cowboys don't. The Cowboys, I think for all intents and purposes, I don't know 100%, but I think they're not going to make the playoffs. But because they're home, they're getting the slight favorite. I just think the Chargers are a way better football team. I think the Cowboys defense, while improved, is still not good. I love Dak. I think he's supremely talented, but I just think the Chargers overall are a better team. I think the Chargers win that game. So give me the Chargers getting a 1.5. Chiefs at Titans. The Chiefs with Gardner Minshew against the Titans. Titans are getting 3. Interestingly enough, I think the Titans have played better football lately. Even against San Francisco, they were scoring points. They were plucky. They were fighting. They're home in this game. They're playing a team now that's out of the playoffs that doesn't have their starting quarterback. Travis Kelce is washed. What do they have to play for at this point? You know what? I'm going to take the Titans getting 3. I think it's very possible that the Titans win that football game. Bengals, Dolphins. Dolphins getting 4.5. This is one of those games where it's interesting because the Bengals got their doors blown off last week, and so did the Dolphins. But prior to that, the Dolphins had won a bunch of games, and the Bengals haven't. The Bengals have been bad all year. Now, yes, they have the advantage at quarterback, but defensively, the Dolphins are better. And the Dolphins are home. So the idea that the Bengals would be a favorite on the road is really probably related to the fact that the Dolphins um, aren't going to be expected to score like the Bengals could score, and they're starting Quinn Ewers. Now, um, full disclosure, I live in South Lake, Texas. Quinn Ewers is from South Lake, Texas. He was the starting quarterback of the Carroll Dragons football team in high school before he forewent his senior season. He was one of the, I think he was the very first NIL kid, and he went to Ohio State prior to his senior season, then transferred and played at Texas. So I know Quinn, his career quite well, because I'm a Texas Longhorn fan. I adopted them as my college football team once I moved to Texas. I'm originally from New York, but I kept my Jets fandom, unfortunately. But anyway, I think Quinn is a very talented kid. And if I'm being honest, I wanted the Jets to take a flyer on Quinn because I felt like his last year in college, he played with an oblique injury that really impacted his performance. And I think is not reflective of who he is and his work ethic. I think he throws an accurate, nice ball. I think it's very catchable. I think he's got a lot of pedigree, and the Dolphins took him in the 7th round. I mean, before his final season in college football, Quinn was like a first or second round projected quarterback. So I think he's actually going to play well in the system because I think the system suits him, and I think the Dolphins are going to win that game. So I'm taking the Dolphins plus 4.5. They may not win, but I think they'll cover. Um, Giants, Vikings. The Giants are +3 at home against the Vikings. The Vikings have been better lately. JJ McCarthy is kind of a schizophrenic quarterback. You don't know what you're going to get any week. He's kind of up and down. I love Jackson Dart. I think he's very talented. But the Giants have been terrible all year. So where do you go with this game? I mean, it's kind of a toss-up. I'm going to pick the Giants getting 3 because I do think the Giants will win another game out of these 3, and I'm hoping that this is the game. And again, I know people think that that's sacrilege and they want the Giants to lose out. I don't, because I think there's a world, like I said, and I showed you earlier, if the Giants, like in a perfect world, the Giants win one of this game or the game against Dallas, and they lose on the road to the Raiders, right? So that's what I'm rooting for at this point, but we'll see. Bucks at Panthers for first place in a very bad division. Last week I had said I did not think the Panthers deserved to be a road favorite because they just, they're a 500 football team, and turned out to be right because the Saints won the game outright. Saints beat both of these teams. They beat the Panthers twice. They beat the Bucks in Tampa. It's at home, which to me is what swings this. And I like the Panthers defense. I think the Panthers played pretty good defense. And I think they'll do enough on offense. And it feels like Tampa Bay is imploding this season. When Todd Bowles drops F-bombs in a press conference, I think most of us Jet fans know that means something's really, really bad because that man was milquetoast as a head coach for us. I don't know if I've ever heard him curse before. And then he went on the podium and just lost his mind last week. So his seat is scorching hot. I think it's very likely the Bucks are going to blow it up on the coaching staff. And so with that, I think that they're in a bit of a spiral where the Panthers, they're having a better season than people expected. And I think that they're a team that can win this game and take control over the division. So I'm going to take the Panthers in that game. What else we got? Jags at Broncos. Jags coming off of a win where they would have scored 70 points if they didn't stop playing against the Jets. And then you've got the Broncos, who are getting better as the season goes on, coming off a really nice win. Bo Nix looked a lot better. A game that for me, if it was in Jacksonville, I'm taking the Jags every day of the week. But because it's in Denver, with that altitude in that stadium, with that fan base, against that defense, I'm taking the Broncos -3 in that game. Falcons at Cardinals. Now, this is a game that will be hard on the eyes. Two really bad football teams, two teams that'll probably be looking for a head coach and a quarterback next year. Uh, unfortunately for Penix, I think he's out. Basically, he'll be out for most of next year. Kirk Cousins won't be on the team. Jacoby Brissett's not going to be their starter, and very clearly, Kyler Murray is not going to be part of the organization. And I think both teams are firing their staffs. So you just have two teams playing out the string. Cardinals are getting 3 points. I trust Kirk Cousins more, and I like their weapons more than I think they can run the football. The Falcons should be so much better than they are. They've got offensive weapons. They can run the ball. They should have. They should win that game. So I'm going to take the Falcons -3 in an awful game. This is a game that is interesting. Steelers are getting 7 points at Detroit. Now, the Lions this season are not the Lions of the last 2 years. The Lions are 8-6 and fighting for their playoff lives. And the Steelers are also 8-6 and have won 2 straight games back to back. And they look like a much different team than they had the previous few weeks. So what's different? Well, it's interesting because I watch a lot of the Steelers because I am a Rodgers fan. So I am a self-admitted Aaron Rodgers fan, my favorite quarterback that I've ever seen play the game. Aaron Rodgers' trajectory this year is very much like last year in my mind. As the Jets quarterback last year, they started out 2-1, and he had just come off a really good game against the Patriots, and then he got his butt kicked back-to-back weeks against Denver and Minnesota, and then he looked like an old man for multiple weeks until after the bye, and then finished the season quite strong. Well, he started out the season strong for the Steelers this year too, if you guys remember. I think they got off to a 4-1 start. People were like, oh, maybe he'll play again next year. And then he got hurt. Not hurt. He started playing poorly. And the last couple of weeks, he's moved around much better. I think he's looked way different. I think he looks like he's got a bit of energy here, a little pep in his step. And I think it's very likely that he'll play a very close game against a team that I don't think deserves to be a touchdown. I'm going to take the Steelers +7 in that game. We have Raiders against the Texans. Texans are 14.5-point favorites. It's a massive spread. But it's fair. The Raiders are awful on both sides of the football, and the Texans are really good defensively, and they're home. Earlier, I took the Bills thinking with my head. I'm probably thinking with my heart here on this one, but if you're giving me 14.5 points in an NFL game, I struggle with not taking it. So even though I don't think there's logically speaking, the Raiders might lose this game by 4 scores. 14.5 points I have to take. So I'm going to take the Raiders getting 14.5. Then I have Patriots at Ravens. I find this one to be an interesting game because the Ravens, fighting for their playoff lives, they're home, are 3-point favorites. The Patriots coming off a 3-score lead, blowing it to Buffalo. But prior to that had been on a run. Right? I mean, they're 11-3 going into this week. The Ravens are 7-7. I just think the Patriots are a better football team all around. I want the Patriots +3 in this game. I think they have a good chance to win that game outright. But it's hard for me to take the Ravens right now over a team that's been significantly better all season. Niners at Colts to finish up the schedule. Phillip Rivers is a great, fun story. 44-year-old man comes in, plays, doesn't get killed, but also looks like a 44-year-old man. Good for him that he got health insurance after the 5-year rule where they lose their health insurance. He's got 10 kids. I think it's an insane thing that the NFL doesn't give these guys lifetime health insurance. It's a whole other argument. But, he can't move. He never really could move, but really can't move now. I mean, he looks like he belongs, he looks like a guy that's been retired for years. So he just physically doesn't look right. He can still throw a nice ball. Like he's got good touch on his football, but I think the 49ers defense is just going to be all over him. And I just think the Niners are going to blow out the Colts this week. So give me the Niners giving 5.5 points to the Colts. I would be shocked if this is a close game. Again, it's a nice, fun story, but Rivers looks like he should be hanging out with Nick Folk and maybe myself physically. You just don't look the same when you're 44 and you've been coming off the couch after 5 years than you did when you were in the prime of your playing career. And he does. I don't think he's got it anymore. Now, very tough games, I say. But last week, our Fiore 4 went 4-0, and Fiore 4 is a fun little name for our best bets. What are we doing this week? This week, we are taking 3 dogs and a favorite. I am taking the Dolphins, getting 4.5. I think that they have a chance to win the game, but no matter what, it'll be close. I don't think the Bengals are winning that game very easily. I think viewers will surprise people. Broncos -3. I think they're better than the Jags, and I think that will be proven this week. I think the Jags are a good story. They're a playoff team, but they're not the Broncos. Give me the Steelers getting 7. I could see a world where the Steelers upset the Lions, but even still, 7 points is too many. And Patriots +3. I think the Patriots will win the football game in general, but even if they don't, that's going to be a really, really close game. And giving me 3 points when you're the superior football team all year, I'll take it. I don't think the home field advantage is great for Baltimore. They proved that they lost to the Steelers a couple weeks back at home. So, and the Steelers are not as good as the Patriots, in my mind. Not now. I know that the Patriots lost to them earlier in the season, but if you were just to put the two teams together right now, I think the Patriots are the better football team. So that's my Fiore 4. Dolphins +4.5, Broncos -3, Steelers +7, Patriots +3. Let's enjoy football this weekend. Let's hope the Jets don't mess up the tank. Let's root for the impossible. We still have a shot at the number 1 pick. Until we don't, I am going to constantly talk about the number 1 pick. And then we can talk at the end of the season about what the decision needs to be when it comes to who finishes with the number 1 pick. Should we trade up? Should we not trade up? But right now, the only thing that matters in week 16 is the Jets, Saints. And if you are looking for the number 1 pick, the Jets cannot win a football game. So, yes, I want to see Brady Cook play well, but I don't want them to win the game. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Enjoy football, and I'll talk to you guys on Sunday post Jets Saints football.